Good evening, everyone. Chodesh Tov, Parshas Va'era. We start off quoting the psukim from the same Tehillim that we read last week, Parak Kuf Mem Zayin, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls each person in Am Yisrael by name. Harofei l'shvrei lev u'mechabesh la'atzvosam, moneh mispar la'kochavim l'chulam shemos yikra. So I continue. Gadol Adonenu v'rav koach l'svunoso ein mispar. Ma'odei anavim Hashem mashpil risha'im adei arts. I translate, Hashem heals the brokenhearted and bandages their sorrow we spoke about. And now our Master is great and very powerful. His wisdom is limitless. Hashem encourages the humble and lowers the evildoers until the ground. There's a pasuk in Yeshayahu that says, "V'nogaf Hashem es Mitzrayim nogof v'rafu." The Zohar says, "Nogof leMitzrayim, rafu leYisrael." The Makos in Mitzrayim, besides punishing the Mitzrim for their behavior, also served to heal Am Yisrael. So I heard a cute explanation for that. B'tesvav b'nisan nikfu b'charisehem, b'nisan niskachu b'charisenu, b'tesvav ba'adar choshech lahem, n'adar v'la Yehudim haisa ayra v'simcha, b'tesvav b'shvat makas arba lahem, v'tu b'shvat rosh hashana le'ila noisenu. They didn't go through all the Makos, but I thought it was interesting to hear. So back to our serious matter. How are we supposed to understand this concept? What kind of healing happened to Am Yisrael through the Makos? So here's a pasuk from Parshas Kisavai. We recognize it all from the Haggadah. Vayero oisanu ha-Mitzrim, vayahanunu, vayitnu aleinu avodah kasha. Question. Vayero osanu, it says, different from the pasuk that we find in Chukas, which says, Vayerdu avosenu Mitzrayima, Vaneshev b'Mitzrayim yamim rabim, Vayero lanu Mitzrayim v'la avosenu. There, Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to Melech Edom, and he says, Vayero lanu. And that's how it should be also in Parshas Kisavai. The one that asks the question is the Nitziv. Vayerau lanu mibai, kamay dechsiv beParshas Chukas. Ella haperush vayerau oisanu ha-Mitzrim asu oisanu l'ra'im ukfuyei taiva. It doesn't mean that they did evil to us; they made us evil. Vayerau oisanu, it's a direct object. Ad shechashtu oisanu va'amru v'noisaf gam hu al sainenu v'goymer mashaloi ola al das Yisrael. So Mitzrayim enslaved an entire nation who did no wrong to them. On the contrary, the Mitzrim owed everything to the Jews. Wasn't it Yosef who saved the country from perishing in the famine? Wasn't it Yosef who brought all the nations of the world together with their money, their wealth, to Egypt in order to buy food in the time of the famine, thus making Egypt to become a world power? Something had transpired that enabled this drastic change of public opinion and attitude towards Am Yisrael. As we quoted from the Nitziv, he explains these words, Vayero osanu ha-Mitzrim, to mean that the Mitzrim blackened our name. They made Am Yisrael appear as bad, as an undesirable people with menacing and dangerous intentions. Sound familiar? This was accomplished by propaganda, similar to what took place in Nazi Germany before the Holocaust. This tactic is called Ayin Ra. There was a collective consensus to dehumanize the Jewish people. Ayin Ra is the maneuvering of the opinion of people by means of psychological tactics. This is the chiddush of my father-in-law Zatzal, Rav Aaron Soloveichik. This enables good to be resented and despised and to be called bad, and bad to be glorified and beautified and to be called good. This is what happened before the hitnatkut, the disengagement that was carried out in Gaza. The mitnachalim were similarly delegitimized by the media, who called them crazy messianic people. By Yero Osanu HaMitzrim, once this is carried over, anything goes, all the rules can be broken. And what happens to the victim of Ayin Ra? Well, unless a person actively responds to throw the garbage back where it came from, this message, this unspoken message, is bound to do harm also to the person, to harm his psyche. It's very depressing. It's very enervating. That's what happened in Mitzrayim to the man. Amram was a Gadol Hador. What does the Gemara say? Amram Gadol Hador Haya. He was the greatest person in the nation. He was a great tzaddik. He was a Navi. Kevan Shera She'amar Paro Harasha Kol HaBen HaYilod HaYaor Tashlichuhu Amar Lashav Anu Amelim Amad V'Gerish Es Ichtai Amdu Chulam V'Gershu Es Nishoisehem V'Chulu. So he instructed the men to divorce their wives, so they no longer would bring children into the world. Children is the hope of the future. He despaired. He said, in such a situation, what's the hope? No reason to bring children into this world. And he affected the behavior of the whole generation. They all went and divorced their wives. The ones that saved the day, we know. Well, what's a continuation of the Gemara? Amalo Bito, that's Miriam. Abba kasha gazerascha yeser mishal paroi, etc. So what was the result of that? Amdu chulam vayakam amad vehachziras ishto amdu kulam vehachziras nishasehem vayikach v'yachzor mibei. It doesn't say vayachzor. He made a whole chasana and he married Yocheved, and Aaron v'Miriam merakdim lefaneha umalches hashoyes amru eim habanim smecha. So the nashim tzidkaniyos b'schusam nigalu avisenu mimitzrayim. There was a continuation. There was a future. So there is concealment in this world. Olam milashon ha'alim. Rishayim can seemingly get away with murder, but this is a quality of the world that enables us to exert freedom of choice, b'chira chafshis. If we would see tzaddikim, living it up and having a great time, then we would all want to be tzaddikim. But when we see that the path of evil is blooming, rasha v'tovlo, derech rishayim tzelecha, it causes a weakening of spirit. It's confusing and debilitating. So what comes? HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes Midah keneged Midah. This isn't a game. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no need at all for revenge and has no joy from man's suffering. When do we see this? We see it on Pesach. Chol Hamoed Pesach, we do not finish Hallel. And Shvi Shel Pesach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ma'aseh Yodai Tovim Bayam Va'atem Omrim Shira. It's not a time to rejoice when you see people suffering. Also, Hashem has many ways that he could punish. Why dafka Midah keneged Midah? Midah keneged Midah is talking about reality. A person, through his behavior, creates realities. We don't necessarily see them instantly because of the concealment built into this world. The punishment, when it happens, is merely the revealed reality created by the evildoer himself. The reverse, of course, is also true. We spoke about that last week. Midah keneged Midah accomplishes some compensation for the hester, for the concealment. It reveals and makes apparent the actual reality. So here, the Mitzrim, they idolized and worshipped the Nile River. The Nile for them was their source of blessing and bounty, but they perverted its blessings of security and all the and the confidence that they derived from it and the bounty. They used it for destructive purposes. When they killed the babies, they turned it into a place for murder. But by Makas Dam, Mida Keneged Mida, it was revealed to all how these waters of life and vigor and blessing had been distorted and desecrated and now turned into a stagnant, stinking place. Suddenly, it's revealed to all that bad is really, really bad and very repulsive. Suddenly, the morally ugly behavior appears with all its hideous face. This is a great Kiddush Hashem. Not because anyone gets satisfaction seeing people suffer, I repeat, but because now white and good is honestly displayed as white and good, and black is displayed as black. The reverse, like we said, is also true. When we see, last week we spoke about it, when we spoke about the Lo Shinu es Shemam, people retained their identity, they retained their free spirit, and they were zoche to freedom because of bizchus, what they had done. When we see that good is blessed, this too is healing to the soul. This too certainly is Kiddush Hashem. So tomorrow is the 11th of January. This is the day 14 years ago that one of the righteous Gentiles, Chasidei Umos HaOlam, passed away. Her name, Miep Gis. I hope I pronounced it right. That's a Dutch name. I read an excerpt from the newspaper the day she passed away. The last survivor among Anne Frank's protectors, and the woman who preserved the diary that endures as a testament to the human spirit in the face of unfathomable evil, died Monday night. This was reported by the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam. She was 100 years old. Now let me tell you, who can forget Miep? I read the diary of Anne Frank. I must have been 9 years old the first time I read it. I still can remember the smell of the book. I thought the smell of the book was like the smell of the place where they hid, the annex. This woman keeps on appearing in the book, and I remember thinking to myself, who is this person? She sounds like an angel. She fearlessly defied the Nazis. She endangered her life and hid and sustained. She kept on bringing the food to the Frank family. You might be interested to note, I read her memoirs. She was born in Austria. She was transported to Holland and adopted by a family because her family in Austria had no food to feed her after the First World War. So she grew up there. She got married. She was married for 20 years without children. And then at the age of 40, she gave birth to her only son. This was before the age of fertility treatments. 50 years ago, a woman giving birth after 40 was considered like something mamash yotzei min haklal. She was zoche to a child in a time when she shouldn't be when regular healthy women weren't having children, and she was zoche to arichos yamim. She was, they said 100. She died 1 month short of her 101st birthday. In her memoirs, she said that a day didn't go by when she didn't miss the Frank family, and she would have given everything up, all the fame and reward, just that they, the Franks, would have remained among the living. Shmuel Hanavi says, in the name of Hashem, Ki mechabda yachabed uboiza yikalu. Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu makapeach sachar kol bria. Kadosh Baruch Hu pays everybody. How much more so for Jews today who are moser nefesh for Torah, for Am Yisrael, and for Eretz Yisrael. You might be interested in listening to a talk that I gave on the occasion of my mother-in-law, Zichrona Livracha, Rebbitzen Ella Soloveichik. I tell the life story, the Mesiras Nefesh of my in-laws. Rav Aaron Soloveichik, a Sefer Torah Chai, his life was a life of Mesiras Nefesh for Chesed, Mishpat, and Tzedakah. I say it's a must-read, listening. I'm not read, it's a koleta. I think it's on Wahu Torah. Interesting, Rav Aaron discouraged his children from attending top universities as Harvard and Yale. He said such aspirations are only vanity, and when there is gaiva, that's a recipe for decadence. Ezahu chacham haroes hanolad. So, a vision of truth, va'era el ha'avos, was shown to our avos. They didn't see immediate fulfillment of the bris. And we all can access this vision, for it is in our genes. We can look around today and see what's happening, where decisions and behavior lead. Do we go for the temporarily popular fads and trends and superficially desirable? Or do we strive for the eternal values of Kedusha, Tzedek, Chesed, Mishpat, and Tov? Ki mechabdei achabed, it all comes around. I wish you all Chodesh Tov M'Varach. Chodesh Shvat is a Rashi Tevos, Shenishma Basuros Tovos. And I end with the fervent tefillah. Uftuye Hashem Yeshuvun, Uvau Tzion Berina, V'simchas Olam Al Risham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bring home all the hostages. Every minute is a disaster. Bring home the chayalim, Briam Ushleimim L'chek Mishpachasehem, with a great nitzachain that will reverberate throughout the world. V'kadesh Shimcha Ba'olamecha, Kishmenu Karasa Bishmecha. Chodesh Tov U'Mevarach.